right. Well, gonna afternoon, evening, or whatever time of day it is for you all. My name is Elise, and I am one of the GGS healers. If you don't know me, who really love playing Final Fantasy, and I'm here. I'm a healer main, so I'm gonna start my presentation on a teaching semester of healing about in high raids. Sometimes I get really nervous during these sort of presentations, so I start mumbling and talking really fast. If you can't hear me or you're not sure, just give me a little bit of. I'll be watching that rage stage, like that chat, so I'll try and answer things to the best of my ability before we start. So that being said, I have a really cute cat who just keeps hitting my mic. Whoopsies. And my keyboard, apparently. Okay, first things first. I started this game in Echoes of the Fallen Star about 4 years ago. It was my first MMO. Just a little bit about me. I got into the raiding scenes shortly after I started Red Mage. And then I wanted to try healing for the very first time. In E5S, and then I tried to do it in T, and well, I was told I was absolutely terrible the first time I did it. So these are just so it was kind of one of those things that kind of made me really upset that somebody said I was terrible. But afterwards, I was like, I really want to just be better at this. I really want to take this to another level. And so here I am. About 4 years later, I've completed 6 rating tiers, 5 ultimates, and I did do a lot of parsing and tried that scene out, and it was really fun. But it kind of took a toll out of me, and I really just want to like teach, and that's when I kind of met Cav and joined GGS and became a raid teacher because I just found the love to like help people teach and whatnot and just watch people grow. So that's just like my starting point. This is just a disclaimer, very beginning. I'm am no pretense to be the world's highest authority on endgame healing. So just putting that disclaimer out there that I would just say I would be like kind of average, but I do know the advanced techniques and stuff like that. So this is why I'm just kind of doing this here. And just to, I guess, have people start out, there was a time where no one was really around to sort of teach or guide or mentor me during that time when I first started out. So I just wanted to give like a journey or a pathway just to what you need to think as a vast healer, some of the ins and outs of what a high-end healing looks like, and just to sort of solidify that, especially early on. And even if you don't remember all of it, that's okay. It's just going to be step by step kind of thing. So once again, my goal here today is to just organize some information out there into one easy session and encourage novice healers to think more deeply about their healing rotation and kits, and hopefully encourage you to start tackling some of the fun endgame fights that Final Fantasy XIV has to offer. I made this presentation last year. There is a little bit of changes I made, but I had a lot of help making this presentation. I actually featured a friend who I co-healed with a lot here as well. And so there's just some of the... this presentation is definitely made with a lot of people that helped me through that as well. So the first things first, I just wanted to say some quick reminders when you start out is that not every death is your fault. I know that sometimes when people start healing and I personally did. I took everything as my fault. Oh, you stood in AoE? Well, that's probably my fault. I could have rescued you. So no, it's a very different sort of way to just instead of this like beating yourself up and kind of say not every death is your fault. So there's going to be some deaths that are just out of your control, and there's going to be lots of deaths when you first prog, and that's just completely normal. And it's normal because the tank's learning how to use their mitts, especially during the beginning of Savage. The DPS are learning how to greed and whatnot. I had to take rescue off my hot bro. I ran out of room at 100. They're on fair. And then my second point is to take it slowly, the learning curve. Especially if you're new to the role or the fight, there's going to be things that you won't snap on pretty quickly. I often get this comment that, oh my god, healing is so stressful. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know how you guys do it, blah, 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 blah. And honestly, it's just, I've been doing it for 4.5 years. When I first started, I was a hot mess, let me tell you. The most of the time, I feel like healers just learn through experience what to do, what to get away with, what the cadence is, what's the nuance of it. And that's just something that will just come through playing the game. Healing is an constant internal screaming. And this is something that's really hard. This at the end of the day, rating at the higher end content is about this team effort. And a lot of people, like it was when you first start the game, don't realize how much powerful that communication transcends through your co-healers to the way you talk to people, the way you interact, where you cooperate with people, and also with like thinking about the raid, not just within your kit, but why does DPS have Fate, Adel, Reprisal, and Shield Sama? Like there's a reason why the developers have already initiated that into their kit, into their, classes and whatnot. And so that's just something that communication and just understanding that portion is a big thing. And it will help your learning too. One of the biggest things that helped me when I first started out is, what's this button? And I would go to like my code raid lead at the time and I'd be like, what is this? I don't know what this does. And what is this buff? And then just identifying some of those early on healing kits and healing symbols and icons, and how do I handle a Dark Knight tank buster? How do I handle this and this and this? What do I need to look for? These are just sort of things that it will just come through communication and learning. You'll just be constantly learning. And the most important thing I want to start out is have fun. I cannot stress this enough. If you're miserable at healing, you won't learn well. But there's a good stress that comes part with the learning curve. And honestly, I am not the person to decide whether healing is good or fun for you. I personally find it exciting and fun and entertaining when there's chaos, and you'll just get a sense of you'll get to hi Ellie, thank you for tuning in. You'll just get a sense of just trying to figure out what is actually fun, what is not, and maybe I like the little bit of pain and struggle and suffering, and that's why I have it fun. But barely done. Take the learning curve slowly. Barely done any healing and jumped at level 750 content. That's basically what I did. I took Red Mage and I started raiding with it, and then I was like, I'm gonna try healer, and then I threw myself in the deep end and I started doing E5S, and then I started doing T, and I was like, well, that didn't work out for the most part. But we're gonna go back into this a little bit as well. That healing has changed, and it will continue to change. And while I just did this presentation a year ago, I've already changed 14 of my slideshows. Why? Because there's just so much extra things to talk about. There's just so much extra things to consider, and it just will constantly change. So this is one of those things where when you love something, it will just the developers and the designers will constantly rewrap it. And then obviously in Dawntrail, AST got a huge workup and a huge thing. So as a healer main, I gotta know what's new. So healing will constantly change, and it's very exciting when it constantly changes because it keeps you on your toes and makes sure that you know what's what. Back in the day, didn't play it But back in the day, I was talking to some of my raid mentors that I made friends with, and they talked about their perspective of healing. And this is very important, I think, to know the history of healing, because where the design and developers have made healers into being in-game content, it has definitely changed in a different direction. Final Fantasy 14 is not like any MMOs. Like, if I have siblings that play WoW and stuff like that, and when they're a healer, you're just made to heal. That's all you do. You don't consider damage, you don't consider blah blah blah, you don't consider anything. Your job is to make sure that everyone is topped up and full no matter what. And that's just the design of WoW. But when we come into Final Fantasy 14, especially during Savage Rages, and I'll talk a little bit more and elaborate a little bit more about this, but when we talk about those Savages and Ultimates, they're completely different from WoW, and it is a completely different ball game. So back in Stormblood, there was like, scholars used to have like 5 dots, and then they have to manage those dots. And then comes Shadowbringer, it just stopped. There was this homogenizing of all the healers, dumbing down I shouldn't say dumbing down, but simplifying their DPS rotation, but making their kit extensive. Then they put in like their GCD timers and then they tweaked a lot of other stuff. And then Dawn Endwalker came and Sage was reintroduced, and they reworked Astro and Shadowbringer used to have the ability to shield heal and peer here, but then they ripped that out and made definitive classes. So very much like there is this simplifying of DPS, which is also really important, which we'll talk about it anyways. But as you can see, that the healing kits and knowing your class and knowing how other healer works does come in beneficial, right? It's less complicated, so that people can focus on the cadence of the fight, focus on recovery and some of the powers that come at it. Some of the comments are absolutely hilarious on the raid stage. So figuring out why your healer's playing Yu-Gi-Oh when 5 people are dead. Absolutely right. Or like back then, and the healing rating back then, I was told, right, even though like Alexander's series was very, very hard in terms of mechanics, the DPS check wasn't as tight. It wasn't expected for healers to do damage. So like, as you can see, the progression of how the developers have in this game, especially during Ultimates and rating, has definitely changed and has definitely had a different sort of minute. And because like everyone back then also had 3-minute bursts, 4-minute, like 2-minute bursts. Now everyone is lined up with 2-minute burst window, and that's something that I won't go into super detail about. But and now we're seeing, Searing Line used to be 30 seconds, but now it's 20 seconds. So there's just this like, I guess, homogenizing, simplifying, all into this nice, neatly packed sort of thing so that we can coordinate as a raid team, right? And that's something that's very important, I think, to also consider when you're in these PvE contents, obviously, but that they're just accounting for so many things. Anyways, now let's talk to this. This is my favorite thing. So at the start of, Endwalker and Dawntrail and, Shadowbringer, you get all these new damage kits and something to consider and all this kind of stuff. And each healer has their own cadence. Now, I can talk probably 6 hours, 4 hours, I can talk 12 hours into what each healer is looking for, the hyper optimization of, especially if you do Dissipation first versus Aether Flow, in Scholar, or if you, how do you save your cars during AST, or where your lilies come and those timings for your miseries and every minute. Like I can talk for hours on what healers are looking for, but I won't do that today because I don't want to talk your ears off. I just want to make sure that everyone gets like this baseline. So we're gonna go from beginning to level to intermediate to advanced level. So some of you guys who are watching this presentation, you're gonna know some of the stuff because I just want to make sure I cover it all. And then the nitty gritty and the nuances of each class, I again won't be covering those, but that will be something that as you go through this presentation, my hope is that you'll start thinking about nuances of your favorite healer and what they need, you know, and what sets them apart, and etc., etc., etc. So, and then looking through those abilities and those skills, and making it, piecing it all together. At the end of the day, piecing it all together is my goal, and so you can see the whole picture. So, first things first. What does anyone know here? The most fundamentally important thing about enrage timers. So we get to this. Let's say you're leveling a healer and you're getting through these contents. You're doing Duty Finder and you're doing these trials, and it's pretty exciting. And you're learning how to manage your kit, and you're learning. Then you want to start conquering the hard stuff, and the hard stuff have enrage timers. If anybody knows what that means, it is very, very important. So before I give you the answer, I'm going to talk about why DPSing is so important in endgame content. Now, you're gonna sit here and be like, Elise, I'm just learning how to heal, man. Now you're just dogging me on my DPS, blah 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 blah. Well, here's the thing. Yes, you have to heal, but you have to DPS. Why? Because back then in Shadowbringers, they weren't thinking about the healer damage at all and the support damage, right? But now when they have these enrage timers, especially in Shadowbringer, that's when it first prompted up. Then in Endwalker, now we're into Dawntrail. The devs are expecting those damage to be contributed to the healers, because as a cooperatively, you know, why are healers given damage buttons to begin with? Why are tanks given damage combos to begin with? You know, at the same time, why are DPS given those mitigation and self-healing? You know, it's a little bit more than just it's a oh shit button that some people have. It's a little bit more than that. So in Final Fantasy, each enrage timer, especially during Savage and Ultimates, and it will be more expected in Ultimates. Again, Ultimates are the highest most difficult fights in the Final Fantasy 14 game right now. So that is just set with the expectation. See that support players, tanks and healers, are contributing a whopping 35% of the total damage. So, and many arguments is that is, you know, then why the heck am I healer? So I just want to reiterate that healers are damage healers, but we have extra tools in our kits that makes our, like, the subclass more interesting. So while we are damage dealers, we also can multitask and take care of the rest of the party while killing the boss together with a team. So just think of it. It's not like WoW healing where you just sit back and you just heal and that's all you do. There's this different way of how do I minimize healing but maximize my damage and kill the boss faster so I don't have to heal so much. And that becomes a little bit of a tricky balance because there is no right or wrong sometimes. Sometimes it's just depending on your co-healer, depending on the situation, depending on where you have to go. You just have to be able to understand and find the cadence of the fight and just be able to manage and be in between and bob and weave between mechanics as well. So it just makes the game, I find, so much more interesting and so much more powerful to me. So first things first, because we have to talk about healing, let's talk about the basics. Everybody knows that your famous ABCs, always be casting. This is very important when it comes to damage. Obviously, most of our most experienced and intermediate healers already know what I'm going to talk about and stuff like that. So right here is FF analysis of me. I'm only doxing me. This is my more recent white mage in N4S. And the reason why there's a picture of my thing is I'm going to talk about something important that maybe if you're new to Final Fantasy or new to MMOs in general, there's just going to be something super, super important like GCD and breaking your GCDs. So you see in the picture there's some X's. This is my log. So no shame on that. X's, that's me, and this is plugged in through analysis. So it's analysis is another tool that I kind of use when I first started healing is I plug this in and I can see my GCD timings. So you see those little gaps where there's arrows, that's when my GCD window has ended. And so because of those gaps, I'm actually just not casting there. I'm not doing the cardinal rule of ABCs. So, but then you can look on, I have a misery, and you can see that it's all gray up there. Those is what I want. Those are what I'm looking for. Why? Because those gaps add up over time, and I'm telling you, just because I'm just throwing myself under the bus here, in that fight, I could have because I had these glares that had holes in it, I could have fit 11 more glares because of those misses. So this is something that is variance because those holes add up. So 11 more glares, right? Times that by 3, that's 30 seconds of not ABCing. Kind of. Like, that's just a rough ballpark. And so that's 30 seconds of not doing anything. What are those bars for? Okay. These bars for, I don't know if you can see my mouse here. This is your GCD window, and I can go through that really quickly here. This is your GCD, this is what you're in. And these gaps are, so it's gray here. That means your recast time, and I'll go through what GCDs are really quick. And this is kind of what I don't want to see. If you kind of see an arrow, basically if you see a full arrow, you're doing something that's clipping, or I'm not just casting, or I'm not ability queuing. So that's just something that's just very early on, just kind of look there, and we can just go into. So arrows are bad. Full arrows are bad, absolutely. And this is on any class you play. If you see a big arrow and you see a white gap, you're not ABCing. So this is grays, and that can sometimes be lag. Sometimes you interrupted, which is usually my fault. Does Final Fantasy account for the slide casting, the caster tack? No. So slide casting and casting, you're going to slide cast within your GCD window and then cast again. So that's just something that we will talk about really, really quickly. But first, we need to go back to the basics. If you don't know what GCD is, it is called global cooldown. It is often most costly, but you need it. So global cooldowns are spent. So think of it like these are your abilities. And actually, I will go I'll go back into the game really quickly here. I think a demonstration would be the utmost important and beneficial. And I say that, and there it is. Okay, here's my game. And I forgot that I was not in a duty, so let me go to Summer 4 Farm real quick. So this is really important. All your GCDs on healers are actually listed by spells. So if you can look in that thing, they're right in the very underneath Glare 3 is a spell. These are GCDs. And so this is super important. If you don't know which abilities is your GCD, whoopsies, I went the wrong way. If you don't know what GCDs are your bread and butter of the entirety of the fight, which is really, really important. And this is why I wanted to go hit the dummies. So as you can see, my hotbar, I play on controller, so bear with me. All my GCDs, as soon as I hit one of the GCDs, all of my other GCDs will be rolling. Your casting will be rolling. So I'm going to hit Dia here. Do you see all these GCDs are rolling? So this you want to make sure that you keep rolling, essentially. That's what ABC is looking for. Now, the other part, you see the abilities that I do not see rolling. Those are usually my OGCDs, off global cooldown. So this is something that we'll talk about in a little bit, and we'll get to that point. And this is considered advanced skills, weaving and precasting, right? All those sort of things come into play as well. So this is what you're looking for, global cooldowns. Every class has a global cooldowns, and every class has
off global cooldown. See that doesn't roll with my GCD, but this one does. This one is an off global cooldown. So I just wanted to really separate those two. Oh, now awkward. I did SIs, so I gotta, because I don't like hearing hearing the battle sounds. So understanding that off global cooldowns are labeled as abilities and can be used between spell casting, which is where healers need to optimize their healing. So these are just some of the healing types. These are the GCD healings. There's the damage GCD, and then there's the damage neutral ones to maintain your DPS. So as you can see, all these healers. Sorry, this picture is from Endwalker, so it's a little bit outdated. But as you can see, each ability classified here are some of the things that are very important when you're first starting out. You need to know what your GCDs are. You need to know what your off GCDs are and stuff like that. So let's start with the basics. Slide casting. So now, this is something that when I first started out, I had no idea. I had no clue. What the heck? When someone says, well, just slide cast in position. What the fuck? What does that mean? And so this is something that this is high-end raiders, and it will take practice. High-end raiders will have to know to get into position for mechanics, because you have to do damage and to keep moving. You have to do damage and resolve the mechanic, and X, Y, and Z. So this is something that you'll have to get really good. And this is a point I want to make. Make sure your hotbar is good. So you don't need to do some finger gymnastics. Most of the time when I come across new players and new healers is that they have their hotbar in such a way that they just clip because their fingers are just, they have to play the piano or play this, make dances across their keyboard, right? Again, one of the reasons why I play controller and not keyboard. But make sure that your hotbar is really comfy on the stuff that you really know and really are easily accessible. So let's just talk about what slide casting is. So I just want you guys to pay attention to this and seeing my cast window is about here, and I kind of specifically put it near my body so I can see, because I can see how long and when does it end. So slide casting comes with a little bit, so about 3/4 of the way I can kind of get, and this is something you can definitely practice, right? Slide casting and doing parkour. And just getting comfortable with the See, I clipped there because I tried to add, be fancy and added a jump. But you kind of get my point. During halfway through the mechanic, I'm making sure that my GCD is rolling and it doesn't break. And this is also something as well, right? This is the recast timer for glare is about 2.5 seconds right now. I'm currently best, so this might change with gear and stuff like that. The cast timer is 1.5 seconds. I'm slide casting at about 1.2 seconds, so I'm just giving myself a little bit more time. But during that window, I can do what is called, especially for those who don't know, these are called single weaving spells. That means that I can weave one off global cooldown during the slide cast window. So I'm gonna just actually, you're gonna heal, right? I'm gonna put Benison on myself, right? Those are OGCDs. So I'm going to put slide cast. I'm gonna put ass eyes. Slide cast. I'm gonna hit presence of mind. Slide cast. I'm gonna, and you don't have to slide cast, but these are just kind of things to consider. That one window, and this is also a pot window. I'm gonna pop a pot. But I did clip, so that's just something you try not to do as well. Then there's spells that allow you, and this will go straight into double weaving. So some abilities here, like Rapture, it's an instant. So if you have more than 2 seconds, you can usually double cast if you don't have shitty pin. So right now, and this is actually, I'm going to do this on AST to double weave, because ASTs are infinitely they have to get used to slide casting at these end game contents. So I'm going to hit something called light speed that will give me a double weave. and then do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again. You see that I'm just double weaving, popping. Those are kind of things. So double weaving, meaning you're fitting 2 OGCDs, right? Two abilities into the window. And so there are some abilities that will allow you to do that, right? And some abilities that will not. So every healer's dot allows them to double weave. A swift cast would allow people to double weave, but their single target fall Maleficent is only a single weave. So that's just something to consider because of the cast time and the recast time. Those are all something that you can consider. Because this is instant, right? Aspect of benefit, which is a single target healing. You can double weave through this one. So it's just one of those things you kind of want to think about, especially during the end game content. And making sure, again, things are easily accessible in your finger grips so you don't clip them. So we're going to move on to the next basic is damage over time, which is very important. Now, with these new changes in Dawntrail, both shield healers have an AoE dot that will be coming to very consider. So damage over your time is just your dot. So that's your Dia, your Biolis, your Eucrasiodosis, your Combustion. These are very important. This contributes a 20% to your healing damage in the whole fight. So it's also important that you need to make sure that you keep that up to the best of your ability, right, during the duration. And now, and I won't go into openers and stuff like that, but we have done a healer dot reopener, which again, don't want to go into too details, but it will increase as the fight duration goes on. You get a stack difference is why there's an early refresh dot opener. But this doesn't work if there is a break or transition, because if you do it in M4, which is not super ideal because there's a break in transition, it actually kills your damage. So there's just a little bit of things to consider why that reopener is really important. I won't go into too details because I can yap. But the more important thing is every healer has a dot. And you got to just keep it up. Try to refresh yourself 2-3 seconds, depending on ping variants, keeping your dot up the whole entire time of the fight. That being said, do not redot the boss when they are leaving. If you know that the boss is leaving in 15 seconds, don't redot it. Don't redot it. You lose damage. It's just better to glare or whatever. And if you're going into the higher ends of the fight and you're doing something like T or top, where there's 2 bosses, like T has BG and CC, Brute Justice and Cruise Chaser, and then in top, M and F, right? Sometimes dotting is really important, but because in top, right, M and F, one of them goes invulnerable, you don't want to dot, that boss, and that's a very specific right, because that dot only is a beneficial to you as a healer in terms of healing damage. Is it when it does last the 3 seconds? If it doesn't, the good rule of thumb is you don't need to redot. So, that being said, we talked so much about damaging and casting and all that kind of stuff. Let's finally get into the biggest difference of cost healing and mitigations. Now, every healer has a costly, and the only reason I say it's costly is because costly just means that in terms of, instead of damaging, you're healing, right? And these are considered costly GCDs. Now, I'm not saying you should be allergic to these spells. That is not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying to you should never touch these spells. No. That is not what I'm saying right here. The difference is between GCD costly heals and versus OGCD not costly healers or damage equalizers heals comes into play on how you play each healer. And remember, having the aspect of balancing damage and healing, you want to make sure that you're using within your kit. And thus we'll get to the next slide here. Costless heals and mitigation. This becomes your bread and butter when it comes to Savages and Ultimate. Balancing your kit with these costless heals into costly heals. So this is something that a lot of healers, when they come into these end game content, will be having a hard time understanding this concept. The reason why it's again, the reason why these are costless heals is because they're all, majority of these guys are on OTCTs. So you can do, right, when I talked about weaving, when I talked about weaving a damage, you can do a heal. Weaving a damage, doing a heal. Weaving a damage and doing heal. And you will not, if you are weaving properly and you're doing your things, you will not lose damage. So you become you're forced to be reckoned with. You're smacking the boss with your damage, but you're also healing your comrades out of, the red, making sure they're nice and healthy and topped off. So yes, blood for the blood lily. That is something that I'd like to call damage healing that are equalizers. So so this is something that is really, really important. Knowing these and knowing these cooldowns. Costless heals are overall something that you can heal without losing damage again. But the problem with costless heals is that they're not accessible, not all easily accessible. I'm just looking at this kit right now. These sages, these abilities are 2 minutes. You hit them once and you can't touch them for 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Some of the AST ones like Macrocosm, this is 3 minutes. You can't hit that again for 3 minutes. Bell, one of the most powerful healing per second ability in the game for White Mage. It's a 3 minute cooldown. So you can't touch that at all. So while you are working your way through a Savage, you have to consider, using your costless heal, but then you have to balance out the costly heals, right? By maximizing your costless heals and minimizing your costly heals, your GCD healing, you can really, it sets apart the different healers of each class, right? And it also separates you from intermediate to advanced healing, right? By knowing your cooldowns and working with your co-healer and working with your team, right? Knowing what will cost less and then knowing what you need to do to, just get through the fight is something that's really important. And again, I can talk to you for hours on end. I can talk to you till I'm blue in the face what each healer does and what's the perks of these abilities and what you can do. But honestly, don't got time for that. And this is something that's really, really important. In your kit, you have abilities to buff your own healing, especially pure healers. Pure healers like White Mage and AST, you have a lot to bolster your healing, to increase your burst healing per second. Whereas being a shield healer, you have to think about more of a proactive way. You have to set things in stone. Now, that being said, AST is one of those weird classes that you want to kind of think about your healing kind of beforehand as well. So there's this proactive part of it. And then Sage can be very reactive. So there's just a very mixture of how each class plays. Again, don't want to go too much, but this is something that you want to kind of consider. What's my costless heals? What's my costly heals? And then when you're healing with your partner, what are they doing? So that they're doing a cost less heal here, maybe I can move something on another healing check. Or maybe we need to use both cost less here so we can do damage in a very 2 minute window intensive part, but we need to heal as well. So there's just something that by understanding these fights, as you learn these fights, you'll pay attention, you'll start paying attention to what your co-healer doing, what you need to do, blah, blah, blah. I guess, yes, that's absolutely trusting in PF, but also trusting in yourself, knowing what they're doing and what their cadence is. That is, again, healing in PF is a different sort of thing, absolutely, but I'm just talking about if you can talk to that person, if you can find ways to communicate, if you are in a static or you're in VC. Those are something that, definitely want to consider. I want to talk about this thing because I just missed it in the last healing session. Is healing abilities actually have effect to your co-healer? And a lot of people don't understand. I was talking to, after the presentation that I did last year, I was talking to some of the healers and they were like, oh, I didn't know that. So there's actually a lot of things that you can do during high-end raiding that will affect your co-healer. So White Mage has Asylum, which is, if you read the tooltip, it is increases the healing received within the designated area. So healing via healing receive is a very common thing you'll see in tooltips. You'll see a bard that has increased Nature's Mane. If you look through Nature's Mane, it'll say increase healing received by blah 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 blah. That means that any healing that person gets will be increased as well. So if I was paired up with a White Mage and I see Asylum, I can pop my own healings, and everyone else in that Asylum bubble will get more healing. It kind of like boosts up my healing a little bit. So that's just something that, I kind of can see and kind of figure it out. Sages as well. There's the Physicist too. The second debuff can also increase his healing. And then Crisis is the single target, right, for Sages. Scholar, you have Fey Illumination, and then also the single target increased healing is Protraction. So and Red Mage has one well. So each class, yeah, absolutely. Monk has one as well. Each class has it. So just think about, especially with healers, working with other healers, especially during the end, make your life easier. You see that Asylum? Damn, bam, pop an extra healing. You see that Scholar's Phase Illumination buff? Fantastic. They're getting ready. I'm going to contribute that by healing with them, And so there's this we'll talk about it later, this healing synergy that will come in, because you'll know what your co-healer is doing, and without talking, you'll be able to synergize with them. So that's very important. So negative contributions, obviously, is when you put two shield healers together, and sometimes it will cancel. That is something that happens. So this is pertaining only to Scholar Sucker will cancel Sages, your crazy prognosis. That will happen. But other shields are fine. Like Scholar's Sephiric Veil, if you eat prog bear, that's perfectly fine. But for some reason, Square Enix put Sucker and E-Prognosis together, and you'll just delete each other. It makes me very sad when that happens. But just know that there's some negative contributions that can affect healing. But I want you to know, this is a pro tip. So I was doing DSR in my static, and we did dual shields. And something I've learned very early on is that while they, like the diagnostics and the Adlo shield will cancel each other out, but if you get crit variants of those shields, like differential diagnostics and catalyst galvanization, they will actually stack together, which is really, really interesting. So that is something that doesn't come across a lot, but like when we were doing that, I was putting Crisis and on the main tank, and my co-healer was a Scholar, and she was putting Protraction, and we were just at the very beginning of the pool, because in DSR the autos will kill a tank, and like if they're not mitigating, three autos will kill the tank, right? So we can proactively before pool just like spam these two single target shields, and they will actually stack the catalyst and the differential diagnosis success, and it gives you a giga shield, which is actually really interesting. Yes, the kind of will delete the normal ones, but if you get both of them, you can stack them. And so that was just a picture of us. As you can see, there is a Ukrainian diagnostic shield on the warrior, but the Sage's catalyst was still on there, so there's a little bit extra shields. So it was like really nice to see. So there's just something that's just a little caveat when you heal with a Sage Scholar composition as well. All right, so this is just the little bit of Dawntrail healing. So this is something that I just wanted to just reiterate again. Now that the Dawntrail healing costless kits are very important, and that's something that you want to weave in as well. I just noticed that, and something that I wanted to talk about as well, is some of the pure healers are on a 2-minute window, so you can see how readily available these costless heals are and how they are able to partake. being White Mage Divine Caress has a powerful potency, as well as AST's Sun Sign, which is a mitigator as well. So it's just kind of like these pure healers got a little bit of extra mits at the level 100 ability, which is really, really cool, right? Because they don't have a lot of mits, but this is something that now they're, the damage is really, really kind of mad and horrible. So, sometimes, so that's something to add, as well as shield healers are given a more puring healing aspect. So they can not only they become a little bit more pure healers at the level 100 level. So again, I feel like this is Square Enix way to kind of homogenize a little bit of the abilities of the healers. Yeah, you're technically a shield healer, but now you have a pure healing ability that grants you healing potency and powerful healing spells. And then and then the Sephirothsism, which is the more powerful thing is I use Sephirothsism a lot to recover. And I've used it so much so that, and then the special ability here is that recast time of Tactician. I was able to recover a M4S party with my co-healer down because of that one ability that resets that cast timer to 1 second and making me basically a healing bot at that point. So it is very healer hungry, but it's kind of like, and just notice that these recasts is at the 3 minutes. So very important here that the pure healers got a 2 minute, 100 ability, but the shield healers got a 3 minute cooldown. So that's just something interesting to see as well. With some of the effects I think it's because they really want to make those tangent healings really possible. All right. So, we're going to move on a little bit because I yapped a little too much, and we're getting to the point where you're probably tired of hearing me. So, oftentimes people come to me, and one of the most interesting and fundamental questions that people talk about is, how on earth how did you recover that? And I just want to give a little bit of my own insights to it. Now, there's no right or wrong way. This is just something that I work I'm very used to triaging and stuff like that in my job, and so this is something that comes very naturally to me, and I feel like that does contribute to it. So when you are recovering a raid and things have gone down the shit because someone made a mistake and now or you made a mistake and now you're just trying to recover because you're progging, you're just trying to see the next move. So a lot of new mistakes that I find people make is that, somebody died, I gotta go raise them. But then they don't realize in 4 seconds that there's a raid wide, and it just annihilates the entire raid team, right? So my first things first is, before you go raise that person who died or jumped off the edge or touched the death wall or whatever, think about the next coming mechanic. Is this a raid wide that they're casting? Okay, if it's not, I'm going to go... I see this a lot when I'm teaching M3S. And if everyone knows M3S, Brute Bomber, somebody dies in an earlier mechanic, and he is going to do brutal impact, and he's just pounding the party with brutal impact. But guess what? You forgot that the brutal impact was coming, and this, again, guilty as charged. I have totally forgot about this. And the brutal impact comes coming, and I already raised that person. So I'm yelling at my co-healer, can you just heal? I already have raised. I'm sorry. So they're like, okay, and they're just pumping all their healing into the raid wide to make sure that the people who are alive are well and healthy. And that comes with a lot of understanding and situational awareness. And it's okay if you don't do this right away. These experience to make these quick decisions will just naturally come, or it'll just happen on the fly, honestly. But the first thing first is, who's alive and do they need to get healed? I see this a lot in M2 when I'm teaching as well. is, especially in beats 1 or beats 2, everybody's like running around, people are dying left and right, but then no one forgets the poor main tank that gets just autoed and autoed and autoed and autoed to death, right? And so you're like, okay, I gotta take care of the tank, making sure everyone's okay, and then I'm gonna go raise. I'm gonna go find that person, and I'm gonna go raise. This is something that's very common during Alarm Pheromone 1. Everybody's running around, but there's just absolute chaos. People are dying, they're flying left and right and center, and this poor main tank who's been alive the entire time just gets swap. So you gotta take care of people who are alive. That's the very first, and anything that's very important in IRL life, if you know what I mean. So make sure that whoever's alive is nice and healthy. Then you can start the recovery process. Raise that person, and then there's the usual priority raises. Oh, if your color healer is down, you raise your co-healer. If your tanks are dead, you should probably raise them. If the DPS are dead, you got it. Sorry, DPS, you kind of get the little end of the stick where your priority raise is kind of relatively last. I'm sorry. So it often depends on how the fight goes. So the exception to this is if both tanks are dead and the DPS is getting autoed, right? You want to take care of the DPS so they don't get autoed to death. So you're focusing. One of your healers like, who's the auto? I'm gonna focus on the auto DPS getting autoed, and then you communicate to your co-healer. Can you raise that tank first? So then the priority of raise changes because that poor DPS is getting plummeted into the ground with their autos. So making sure that the tank gets raised first. There's some rage timers as well, raising the DPS. Looks like the damage is fine. So I see this a lot in M2, Rotten Hearts. The last raid I went out, we're at 0.5% of the health bar, and I've accidentally raised the healer. There's no more damage going out. There's no need to raise the healer. I'm sorry. Our damage is the lowest compared to everyone else. So my priority should have been, raising the Pictomancer off the floor, or raising, the Viper off the floor instead of my poor healer. So because there's no more damage, right? And there's also, if there's a case of multiple deaths, you have your tank, your co-healer, and there's, not a lot of time. You're transitioning to the thing. Well, you can raise your friendly red mages and summoners who are always going to be like, yo, you gotta raise, you gotta help me recover this. And they are the breaker make it during progging. I want to, as somebody who have done week 1, I had a red mage. I love them to pieces. They literally saved our countless of runs just so we can see later on to the mechanic. And even though we wiped to the enraged timers, we saw sunrise, and we saw all those things. So shout out always to your friendly red mages and summoner. Treat them well. Make sure that you're raising them. They are first off the floor. You gotta give them praise, because sometimes if they're not there and everybody's dead, guess what? It's a wipe, because sometimes just your lonely red mage stays alive and he raises a healer. There's a healer be 3 gone off and we still are in the fight. That's just, again, one of those things where always treat your red mage really nicely so that they can figure it out the rest. That being said here, let's move on really quickly to some of the advanced stuff. And if this goes over your head, that's okay. This is more jumping. Again, if you're a beginner healer, don't worry about these sort of things. This is just something that now I'm talking to the advanced healers in the group here. Advanced healing is knowing the damage and knowing the damage type, and that will change a lot of it, especially for scholars as well. Some of the mitigations are only magic resistant. So you don't want to, let's say, put something magic defense on a brute bombers in brutal impact, which is physical raid wide. And this is something that was really common in the last tier, is harrowing hell. That I found that people were kind of like, there's this poor magic barrier. While magic barrier is a beautiful spell because it increases via healing, the mitts was, yeah. There's no, it was because it was a magical mitts. It just went right through. Just like the two lovely tanks, the Dark Knight and the Gunbreaker. These poor people were putting Heart of Light and Dark Missionaries on Harrowing Hell, and I'm like, it doesn't work, buddy. I'm sorry. So there's two types in Final Fantasy, is damage variants and damaged actors. Not all raid wides are the same, and this is also with including tank busters as well. So this is incredibly important to understand when you're progging through the fight to maximize. Again, this is one of the things, maximizing your healing and maximizing to know the difference between damage variants and damaged actors. The variance comes in to where magic is damage. The raid wide is physical damage, and it will affect the party differently. So this is something that you'll see. You'll wonder why sometimes when you're in mid-item level and you're going through a fight, that the poor physical range died to the raid wide, but everyone else did it. That's because you'll just need to know that physical range DPS are especially squishy to magical raid wide damage. And then you'll wonder, the brutal impact is going off then, and you wonder why the poor red mage died and the poor Pictomancer died in the background because of because of the lariat, not the lariat, but the brutal impact. And you're like, I wonder what happened. Everyone else was fine, but everyone else died. So it's just some of the thing is, casters are known to have higher resistance to magical damage, and physical DPS are more resistant to have higher in physical rate damage in X, Y, and Z. So there's just something that, and there's also darkness damage, which is just unmitigatable. And darkness damage shows up on your screen as green, and it just means that no matter what mitigation you do, it will just hit the same. So if you did P8S, and then some of you will know, talking about the natural alignment debuff that gives people bleeds in P8S Part 2. That is notoriously known as darkness damage because you cannot mitigate that as well. And so actually the entire Bissos tier was very, very prominent on those bleeds getting affected by how well you mid-it the party or how well the tanks mid-it, right? If the tanks didn't mid at all during the tank buster, the bleed will absolutely annihilate them. So that's also something that is very, very common in terms of advanced healing, knowing those two types and knowing how to handle them. Because now you know that this is a physical damage raid-wide. You might treat things a little bit differently because you got to take care of your squishy casters, because three of your DPS are casters. Something to consider when you're progging through the fight. Obviously, there's also damage actors, which is something that a lot of people don't know. Some mitigations apply to the boss, when you're, or the person that you're targeting. Reprisal, feint, adult. When you get into the higher echelons of healing, for example, DSR and top are notoriously known that the damage actors are not coming from the boss, which is kind of a dick move in Square Enix parts, in my opinion, because it renders those reprisal feint addles useless to them. But so for example, some are really, really important. So for example, if you ever remember back then, P9S, and this is just something I wanted to bring up, the falling damage from the cosmos and one of the meteors that fall down, the proximity damage, you can't mitigate it through the boss. Those become damage actors, and I'll pull that out from the log that you can kind of glean and figure out when you're progging through the fight. What are those damage actors and where are those damage coming from and stuff like that. And so there's just some things that you'll know that putting a feint here on the boss is useless. But I want you to know that putting a feint on, if you've ever done M3S on Brute Bomber, Fuse. Does everyone remember what Fuse? There's a lot of FF ability names, but Fuse is basically the one with tethers and debuffs, and you gotta cleanse your debuff and cleanse the tether. Did you know that the damage actor is coming from the boss? and not the tethers itself. So you can reprisal at a feint. If you have an extra one on board, you can, help the healers out. That's a tight, everybody who heals that fight knows that is a tight healing check there. So if you help out your friendly old healers, or you want to, try an old job, and, you forgot to use feint somewhere else, you can definitely always use it during the boss, during fuse when people are cleansing their debuff. Their purple debuff and their so that's just, again, one of those things that to know the ins and outs. Now I'm talking a little bit too much and talking a little bit overboard, so I'll try and wrap these next two up. This is more advanced, again, into the advanced healing session of the presentation, but so I'll make it a little bit briefer than I intended to be, and more so just because I'd rather open it up for questions and stuff like that here. So one of the theories I have with healing endgame content is this co-healer synergy. And I mentioned earlier in the presentation, co-healer synergy is knowing what your co-healer is doing during those checks. And this will be really hard for people who PF heal. Again, 100% find it difficult because you don't know who your co-healer is and you may not trust them. But once you get into a static or once you know how somebody heals, it makes those healing checks really efficient and really easy. You can focus on reducing the overhealing and having that common knowledge of what they're doing during the timelines of the fight and how they're managing it. And you can come together and make like this healing plan or healing mitt that comes really naturally easy. Now, this again is one of those higher min-maxing optimizing thing when it comes to parsing groups, when it comes to being really efficient in your co-healing. This is not something that you need to know first off and start off. When I was doing my parsing group, we were doing this thing where we're speed killing. So that means that the other healer's not stacking their DPS. We're just going to go with our AST and Scholar. So this comes in very important. I need to make sure that I perfectly heal for my Scholar friends so they can perfectly mitt and do damage. So then there'll be this powerful optimization where we just pump out damage but heal at the same time. And it becomes where our speed kill goes like all the way up there into the top 11, I think we got. But that being said, that's just something that communication, this is a very simple way of just communicating and reviewing logs. And we'll go through how to review those logs very briefly though, but communicating those MITS plans and those analyzing your logs will be fundamental knowledge on how you can optimize and really have that perfect co-healer synergy with your co-healers. Another thing I wanted to point out is tangent healing. So you'll notice that during these endgame content is that there's these healing checks. And they kind of happen on the 2 minute, the 3 minute, and so early on I mentioned on as like, I just want to take note why white mages have, Bell on 3 minutes as well as Cosmos, but Sage and Scholar have 2 minute expedience in Panheima, and then they did the role reverse in Dawntrail where, Divine Caress and Sun Sign were, at 2 minutes, but now, Philosophia, and like the 100 ability for Sage, Seraphim, are now at the 3 minute window. And I honestly believe it's just to initiate those tangent healing sort of compositions with different healers. And that makes things really, really powerful in terms of that. If you heal one, I heal the other. Or if we just combine, your 3 minutes and my 2 minutes. And then the next turn, you will combine your 3 minute cooldown with my 2 minute cooldown, then it'll just really optimize. And so coordinating it and aligning with one's cooldown is a major part of advanced healing and major part of being responsible for those healing checks. And that's just something that, again, really, really niche-y and really, really technical when I am going to talk about that, but I don't have a lot of time because I've already talked too much. But just some of the things that you want to start thinking about when you're looking at your healing kits and whatnot. So that is something that early on, it's something to keep in the back of your head when you're trying to heal these fights. Now, the pure healer is supposed to heal first for those now. I have not been doing that. No, not necessarily they're going to heal first. And whatnot. Anyways, let's just pull up this log here. This is one of my logs. This is a very early on kill. Please excuse me. So, the main thing I want you to glean from this log is looking at the two healers right here, okay? So my healing and my lovely friend Moea healing. She's fantastic, by the way. She's the best scholar I know. So, she's also really scary and cracked at healing. So our combined DPS, this is something that this is very important. So the enrage timer and M4S, right? We're doing here where our combined DPS, if you add these up, we're doing 27k. So think about that. If you're adding these two damage up, we're doing more than the top DPS right now, right? So this is why your healing in rage timers makes it really, really easy, because we're pumping out the damage as well. And then on top of that, we're if you have really good proficient healing and proficient damage, we're damage dealers. The two of us combined is 27k. We are out DPSing a black mage altogether. So this is really, really, really important that we're making DPS checked really easy and light, and we're pumping it out. This is something that when you're looking through logs, what your co-healer's doing. How can I help that make that efficient? So let's just look at our healing. So pure healers, though, I will say, when it comes to overhealing, you're just going to overheal a lot. That's just how the kit works. With Star and AST and Assai's, that's just going to over equivocally. But we can try and reduce her overheals and then match it up. So this is really something really important. Don't look at this because that's kind of irrelevant. But I want to really pay attention to this healing per second. The closer you are at healing per second is like, I would say, sharing the damage healing between the two, healers, and that overall will contribute to the damage here, because we're healing efficiently here, which is really, really important, right, during those things. And I've just clicked on these healing to see where we're healing and where we're the most powerful healing. So I'm white, so you can see that in the 4-minute window, this is really high healing. And this 4-minute window is, I believe, ion cannons for this fight. So if anyone has done M4S, ion cannons is a huge DPS check, and it's also a huge bursting check. So making sure that we have myths and healings to output those that damage taken is also really good. So you can see here in the 4-minute, if I go to the damage taken tab, this is where the damage really skyrockets. Everyone is taking a total of 84k, and it's really, really high. But, I'm making sure that when we're healing, these lines need to kind of be in sync. This is what I mean by co-healer synergy. You kind of want these lines to line up very, very well, and not one person being, in the 40k and healing. There is times where your specific fights that I do like to do, especially with a AST and Scholar comp, you want this almost like you heal and then I heal and then you heal and then I heal with the Sage and and with Scholar and AST, and that's because how the kits work with them too. They work really benefit with tangent healing, but with White Mage and Scholar, I find that this synergy where the closer you are to these lines, you can kind of tell that this is overall a very good healing group. And the closer these are in its heals per second, these are really, really good as well. So just considering how this is the bird's eye view on looking on this data instead of picking apart the nitty gritty and stuff. So again, I want you to give you guys a sense that this is what I'm focusing on when I learn the fight, and this is what I'm focusing on. What am I doing? What is my co-healer doing? How can I contribute? And then because I'm a selfish healer, I'm going to have lower ARC DPS, and because she gives chain, she will have higher. So as you can see, they flipped. The ADPS has flipped. Her APS and RDPS flip. This is something that's beautiful in my opinion in terms of damage output. We do really this is in terms of healer co-synergy. This is something that I particularly look for. Now, aside from the advanced healing, and this is something not every, so you can kind of diagnose the problem during prog. So I just want to pull back a little bit, and this is the final thing to note for progging and stuff like that. So I'm just going to pull out. Do we have any deaths here? Okay, perfect. We had a death. So we had 3 deaths in this pool, which sucks. But let's just look at my death, because this is. So when you are knowing if you're healing enough or you're under healing, these logs are very, very important to kind of figure out what is going on. And I'll be honest, I just didn't get healed. I didn't heal myself, and I just died. That's how this one works. So you can see that the damage overhaul, I healed before, but then I just went and I died. But also with that being said, you can see how much damage I took. So I was just incorrectly wrong, because this is greater than my health pool as it stands right now, 868 Ks. So I can also click on the character and look what kind of buffs I had as well. I had Temperance there. I had Severic Illumination, which was also a Mitt. I also had my food buffs. I also had Severic Veil. So I had 14% mitigated damage, but I just went plat because the damage was... So this, you can kind of tell that this is a player error, not a healing error. So if I wanted to find out really quickly, and this is how you can kind of diagnose the problem, is... so at 11:51 minutes, I think I know what happened here. I'm not entirely sure, but I died at 11 minutes and 51 seconds. So I can actually go hit the replay function, which is really, really important when you're in terms of progging. And go into the very bottom here. I can also click me, what I'm doing, what I'm casting, how I'm even facing, which is really important. And I can kind of scroll in closer to see where I'm positioning those markers. So this is also something that I was talking about earlier. Here's this damage actor, right? And you can also see their cast bar here and their health bar here. There's also different damage actors, as you can see in this fight, right? That make up into it. So this is what I mean by when you're understanding what to miss for Reprisal Feint, these damage actors come into play, and they just take a different they act like a being, but you can't hit them. But that's the point. So we died at 11 minutes. So I'm just gonna go here and 11 minutes here. We're gonna 11:51 here. Oh, died closer to the end. Oh, okay. So I got shot here. So you can kind of see at the 11:51 mark, somebody got shot here. And so here is, so I'm going to see right here, I was probably slightly out of position, but also the Viper was slightly out of position here. And I can actually click on them to see where they're facing. Yes, and so we're doing the mechanic time sunrise, and I can zoom in, and he's just off the marker. So that's where I got shot from north here as well. I can zoom in, see where I'm positioning as well. I was also a little off, and then the paladin. Yeah, so it's just like one of those things where you can kind of see that I was like, there's a little bit of common problems in this picture to why me and the paladin also died in this combination. So right here, bam, we died as the mechanic goes off. And that's just not resolvable through healing. It wasn't a mid issue, wasn't a healing issue. It was just a failure of mechanics and whatnot. So that's that being said, that's just kind of how you can go about thinking about how to improve as well. In this case, it was just incorrect position, but sometimes you can see that, oh, I didn't heal, so maybe I need to burst heal during X, Y, and Z and whatnot. So that being said, that ends the presentation. I did go a little bit over time. Yeah, that was doing sunrise. I need to go a little bit over time, so I'm just gonna leave you with this lovely thing. I understand everything now. Doesn't get it all. That's me. 100%. So, I just want to thank you guys for listening to this final presentation here. I hope that it was at least you can take away something from it. Um, my philosophy is always kind of keep your chin up, kind of be in the state of growth and improvement, and as time goes on, you will get better, and you will conquer healing and get and grow as a healer. So that is my 2 cents. I'm going to leave it up. I know that I kind of went over time a little bit, but I want to leave it up with some questions, and I'm going to pull this Discord real quick here. Hold on. And if you want to talk to me, or if you want to ask questions about stuff, just come and raise your hand and we'll pull you. But if not, I hope you have a wonderful evening. Yeah, slide casting will definitely help you in some of the classes that need slide casters. For sure. For sure, for sure, for sure. Okay. Well, I am glad that yes, slide casting is not for any bar. I over here and try to do less, but I'm worried that people will die. That happens. That happens, and you'll kind of find your comfort level. And it's also knowing the fight and knowing how much damage people take and knowing what's okay and what's not okay, and really pressing that threshold. So, yeah. No one has any questions? I can pull you and we can chat about it. Well, silence is always good, right? Oh, what question? On the topic of cohesionality, what is the expectation of shield healers? I main white mage. My existence is to heal after raid wise. Poop out the big heals and top people off. However, what's stopping me from jumping to shield healer mode is I find that raid wide healing from regen healers, despite mitts and shields, is often lacking, and people really get topped off. This results in death and defaults reaction from PF and vet raiders. There's not enough mitts, and it doesn't make any sense to me. This caused on Scholar almost to perpetually have my own raw healing and GCD and hard casting more than I like for a few raws of healing. So I can't speak to your experience in terms of PF healing. So in terms of what is the exact expectation of shield healers, it is to mitigate damage as well. But on the flip side of things, white mages also have a little bit of mitts. It's not a lot. Like temperance is a 2-minute cooldown. Like, so you don't get a lot of abilities to mitts. And so you can, in every 2 minutes you can mitts, and then if you really want, you can move divine caress to another mitts heavy sort of attack, because you have that cooldown with white mage and specifically as well. So the expectation, but shield healers also have free healing as well. Like, they have Whispering Dawn, which is a regen, which is the most powerful, one of the most powerful regens, stronger than yours, but it's a cooldown, right? The regen is very, very strong compared to a white mage Mega 3, but on top of that is an OGCD, so it's free, you know what I mean? So is it the healing? So if you're playing White Mage, and this is going to talk about the nitty gritty details of White Mage. White Mage is, I like to talk to Moea a lot, which is my co-healer, because I play White Mage a lot, is I need to dump these lilies out because I need Misery on the 1 minute. And then I need Misery on the 2 minute window. So I will communicate to her that I need these. Every other extra healing, she'll kind of, do a little bit. Fey Blessing just to top people off too. And so in the majority expectations between us, I think that healing is a twofold jobs. I can pump out most of the healing, but if she can top off with, especially if you're doing a scholar, she has a little bit of extra heals. Her shield does a healing that tops people off, and her Severic Veil has a little bit of extra healing that tops people off. So we just come to, and then sometimes I just wait until, like, especially if you have ass size that is very beautiful, the ass size timing, really just say, oh yeah, just let me handle it. Ass size is coming off. I know there's raid there's the, let me just handle this. And she's like, okay, and she'll pull back from it as well. And then she'll be like, Elise, there's, I'm, Crit Adler spread here during this Azura Thundercast. Do you have any? I don't have anything really for this next Wicked Thundercast raid wide. So I'm like, you got it. So I have Temperance and Divine Caress that's covering those raid wises mitts where she doesn't have any. You know what I mean? So there's just this more fluential sort of thing. And so in terms of expectations, it's really hard to gauge that in PF, right? I can't communicate what they're doing. I can't read their brain. I don't really know what's going on. So yes, oftentimes in terms of safety, I just overcompensate. And that's just very common in PF because you want to get through the fight, you just want to clear. So when I talk about co-healer synergy, it's going to be a little bit different in a PF setting. 100%. It's going to be different. But when you're in the parsing world and like you're in some of the like in statics and stuff like that, that's something that you want to push. If you want to push both your healing with it's very different. Like as a DPS, you do your rotation, you get through the fight, and that's kind of it, right? Whereas it's more of a question is, I have another player and we need to work together so that we can pump out the most damage so we can beat the DPS with our combined damage as well. You know what I mean? That's just something that I think at the end of the day, it requires a little bit more effort than PF healing. It requires a lot of communication, and it requires a lot of organization, and it requires, to trust your co-healer. Because she got to make sure that she hits her healing buttons on the time that she needs to hit her healing buttons, because I got nothing. So this is very important, though, right? If you're doing duo shields, you need to make sure that those duo shields parse out. Because if you over-shield and over-heal, you don't have a lot of healing per second to make up for that, right? So the healing per second, so when you're duo shielding, and this is something I learned in DSR, duo shielding, is that if I messed up in DSR Phase 7, we were for lack of a better word, because this is recorded, we were foobarred. We were done because I hit my button when I shouldn't have, and now we're gonna die to Giga Flares. So that is, and we did. We wiped, and I was very sad because that's a 20-minute fight. But that is something that very early on becomes, something that in static groups, it becomes very nuancey and very, very specific. Question for White Mage damage. If chain strat's timing starts becoming misaligned, what is the best way to maximize damage if I can't fit all the glares under POM? Do I lose a cast for glare 4s or maximize glare class 4s? Glare class and glare 4 after change class strat has gone. So the 100 white mages is that you still want to do glare 4s and fit them under chain as best as you can. And if you can't, or it's not just chain, but what about your other party alignments? If chain is the only one that's misaligned, and there's critical step going off, and there is a dreamy the Pictomancer buff. Holy crap! I already forgot the name. And then there's a battle lightning going off. Align it with those. Star Muse, thank you. Align it with those. I mean, chain sprat is pretty important, but it's sad. But like, the more buff window stuff you get, you want to smack it under those, right? Just because chain is off. Now, if in the example where everyone's a selfish DPS and your only debuff is chain strat, you can try and push it. That's where White Mage becomes very flexible. You can try to push everything back into the chain. Because, you know, if they say to you, hey, by the way, chain strat is like off, like really badly off because they died during a burst window or whatever, and they didn't save it for that burst window, and then they burst on a 1 minute. Well, you can pump out your... You can do two of things. The highest optimized thing is you can just wipe. That's the highest optimizing answer for you. You just wipe and you make sure that you don't dismiss a line. That's the easiest answer for you. But during a poll, right, your miseries and your glares you can try and realign them under that chain window, but it might be hard, it might screw you up, and it might push back your DPS, right? In a world where the scholar is only doing chain strat and it's your only buff, you do your best to fit everything underneath them, regardless if it's shifted or not. That's true. Why? Because it's the only buff right now that matters. But if you have other players that are giving you buff, which is very common, like if you have, dance and stuff like that, and if you don't, if every buff is misaligned, right? Unfortunately, in terms of parsing, that's not a good group to parse in. I'm just gonna be straight honest with you. It's to nitpick which buff is better. We can go on a long tour on which buff is better, which you should realign. But in actuality, that's probably not the group you want to go with in parsing. Yeah, not for parsing purposes or efficiency in my end. If misery doesn't fall under the chain window, that's fine, as long as you're not overcapping your misery. You want to try and do it and save it up, and if it happens to be saved up, that's perfectly fine. Your misery is the one that you are worrying with. In terms of presence of mind, I think it's a little bit negotiable too, because how long is the chain delayed? Is it delayed a minute? We can crunch numbers at the end of the day and see where you really want for efficiency. I'll be honest, if any buff is delayed more than a minute, I don't I don't wait present in mind that long. I just pump it out when it comes out. If it's delayed maybe 10, 15, 30 minutes. My max is 30, to be honest. Just because the downfall of delaying a minute and your kill time, right, becomes a problem. It's going to be really hard to say, because if your kill time, for example, is 11 minutes, delaying a minute, you're gonna lose. Like you'll be fine. You know what I mean? If delaying 30 seconds, you'll be fine. If the cast is almost a minute and 40, there's a good chance you're going to lose a stack of presence of mind under the entirety of the fight, which ultimately your DPS overall drops as well on White Mage. So that being said, it really depends on the fight. If it's a 13-minute fight, that's going to be really hard. If it's a 9 minutes, 8 minutes, 7-minute fight, honestly, you can probably delay a 30 seconds, 40 seconds, but no longer than that, honestly. 30-minute delay on chase strat. No, it's fine. Because those are variants in how much present of mind windows you can fit, right? On at 8 minutes, if you delay any further, you're going to lose a present of mind. Like, if your kill time's at 8 minutes, you're out of present of mind. It's kind of like, oopsies. But if your kill time's around 9 minutes, 11, and that's hard to gauge during a fight. I'll be honest with you. Unless you know the fight really well and you know that person really well and you just done it a couple of times for efficiency's sake, sure, delay it. Delay it because it's only 9 minutes. You know what I mean? Then you're bursting on the odd minute, which is fine if that's the only buff that's going out at the time, right? But if you're going to kill it at 8 minutes and they're a minute behind, well, they lose out and you don't. So you pump. you pump in terms of efficiency. You don't miss out, so you can get your full hits of a present of mine. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Fights are going to be harder to sort of figure out, per se. For example, in top, because in phase 2 the boss leaves at a very certain way, you actually misery at first GCD no matter what, because you hit the both bosses at the same time, and then you actually save ass eyes. In the beginning of P1, you want to hold ass eyes depending on kill times of the beetle, right? So the top white mages were saving ass eyes, which is considered a damage loss overall, but because they reopened with a misery ass eyes, it just hit the 2 bosses and is overall under buff windows. Everyone's holding their stuff under buff windows, so they lose out in ass eyes, but because those realign under buff windows, you actually just gain more benefits out of them. So that the same applies to any other of those fights. The idea is that if you delay at a certain point, yes, it becomes beneficial, but if you delay it too much because they're just not pushing their chain strap button, then you just cry and you just pump it out. You pump it out when you can. That's a good question. Anything else? Anything else? I'm gonna go back and well, if you don't have any further questions, I will let you all go for now. But thank you once again for staying and chilling and listening to me ramble and talk and probably mother and spit. Alright. I will talk to y'all later then. I will stop the recording.